We live in a fast-paced society, one filled to the brim with information firing at us at every second of every day. Social media constantly bombards us with opinions, facts, and data, so much so that we have to parse it somehow, compartmentalize all that we see into convenient truths. We autocorrect so much in our own minds, but what if that leads to some kind of loss of humanity? What if this makes us less able and less patient when we try to understand something, or more appropriately someone, far more complex? And this is Persona 4. It's an experience that tries to comment on these thoughts in a way that only video games can. Persona 4 is very clear about its theme: reach out to the truth. Heck, it's even in the battle music. I want to talk about this theme and how it weaves both the way the game is played and how it integrates the gameplay into the story. Plus, I'll be talking about how this affected and still affects players of this game on a meta level. And to do all this, I'll be focusing on one particular character by asking the question, why is Kanji Tatsumi so important? The Persona series has been around since 1996, but wouldn't get really popular until Persona 3, where a lot of new staples to the series were established. The focus became more about the social aspect of life, people and our bonds between them. While Persona 3 enjoyed high praise and some degree of success, it wouldn't be until Persona 4 where the series really hit its high in terms of popularity. P4 took a much lighter tone compared to Persona 3's theme of death and its inevitability, concentrating on a small bunch of characters and their personal issues in the face of an overarching murder mystery plot. As I mentioned before, thematically the game was trying to tell the player one thing: reach out for the truth. It was important that the player realize this and were told directly, so that they could put this into practice even in the game world. But more on that later. The idea is found everywhere though. The TV world is often made up of ignorant rumours and filled with a fog that only the main characters can see through due to their special glasses they receive once they've accepted their true self. Even as the story grows more dire towards the end, the characters will blatantly mention that the townsfolk seem to be satisfied with rumour rather than using their own mind to divide facts from what is likely fabricated. From here on out, I'm going to need to talk about plot specifics, so if you haven't already played this game, I recommend you go and pick it up. Persona 4 Golden is available on the PS Vita, remember that console? And the original is on the PS2. This game is definitely worth your time. So before we talk about Kanji, let's talk about the shadows in general. For anyone who didn't care about spoilers and hasn't played this game, whenever a person is thrown within the TV world, which is a world made up of the unconscious thoughts of mankind, a shadow self can appear who is part of yourself that you try and hide from the world. The shadow selves, however, are often twisted versions of that part, mutated by the views and the ignorance of the people around us. They are a simple, caricatured version of the true you. An easy way for other people to sum up a very complex part of a human being. Each shadow would mention a truth about the character they were created from, but then twist it into a lie that's easier to swallow for those watching the Midnight Channel. Truth isn't always easy or convenient. One of the less dramatic examples of this is Yukiko and her shadow. Her shadow tells everyone, Yukiko included, that she is trapped in the life she leads, pressured by parents to inherit the family business, and is left no choice to decide her own destiny or to go a different path unless her prince comes along to save her. She feels that she cannot break away from the inevitable unless someone comes and does it for her. She hides this part of her because she's ashamed that she wants to break away from the business and has to rely on others' help to do so. While it's true that she feels pressured into inheriting the business, and that she feels caged by what's expected of her, it's never been the case that she's unable to change without someone rescuing her. This lie is propagated by a slightly unhealthy dynamic between her and her best friend Chie, as well as her disbelief in herself. It's simply easier for her to believe that she needs someone else. Do you see what I'm saying here? The characters have to reach out for the real truth, accept the difficult part of them, and abandon the convenient lies, the stereotypes, and rumors that are so quickly used by society around us. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's talk about the man himself, Kanji Tatsumi. Kanji is introduced partway through the story, so you've already had a good amount of time to get to know the core 4 members of the cast. You finally hear about how he's a delinquent who beat up an entire biker gang, how he's trouble at school, and how even Dojima had to question him at the police station before. By and large, society seems to look down on Kanji, branding him as a bit of a rebellious child with a lot of anger problems. We then notice Kanji spending a lot of time with this detective prince, Naoto Shirogane, who, despite being a rather attractive girl, is currently disguised as best she can as a man, so that the police take her seriously. He seems to be flustered at the idea of spending time with her, believing that this boy is attracted to him, and is confused in why he feels something akin to attraction himself. And here's the point where I lose a lot of you, so bear with me here, because I need to explain to you that, despite what a lot of people think, Kanji Tatsumi is not gay, and that's actually incredibly important to the game's story and the game's theme. When Kanji and the party come face to face with his shadow self, he claims that he's always been into feminine things, and that he's always hated how the girls laughed and mocked him for it, and has therefore always found himself more comfortable around men. The shadow seems to strongly imply that Kanji is therefore attracted to men altogether. It's incredible how many people have taken this at face value, despite the fact that every one of the other shadows have lied to their real selves, or taken the viewpoint of the people around them rather than the truth. You have to reach out for the truth, remember? These shadows are a reflection of the hidden heart of each character, twisted by rumor and speculation. So let's take a look at where Kanji is at this point a bit closer, instead of just looking at him without any depth at all. We learn on Kanji's social link that when his father passed away, he told Kanji to be a real man. As a young boy, Kanji didn't really understand what this meant, but as he had to be strong for his widowed mother, and as it was his dad's last wish, Kanji became obsessed with being manly. The thing is though, Kanji had some unusual hobbies and interests for a boy of his age. He loved to create crafts, to sew, to knit, and he had an eye for things that were cute or beautiful. Eventually we learned that his soft-hearted nature and his interests, which were more associated with femininity usually, caused him to be ridiculed by his young classmates. He would then slowly start to put up a front, acting tough and fighting anyone who made fun of him. Girls in particular would hurt his feelings with their gossip, but he would not fight them, and he had no defense against their insults. Kanji would begin to hide his real self, believing it to be unmanly, and instead getting more and more into fights and trouble to cover his insecurities. After years of this, we come to the events of the game, and at the boiling point of Kanji's emotional insecurity. All of a sudden, this brilliant and feminine-looking detective seems to want to spend time with him. Kanji begins to think deep down, what if they're right? What if I have been gay this whole time? The point, however, is this. Your interests do not make you gay. A person's hobbies, likes, and dislikes cannot be so easily categorized into masculine or feminine, straight or gay. This is the real truth. But it was much easier for Kanji's classmates to instead label him in these ways. Yosuke and the others are starting to realize that you have to look for the real truth when they come to Kanji's aid. Yosuke even mentions that this is Kanji's feelings going out of control. How does he know that? Well, let's have a look at the other shadow selves in the game. Yosuke's shadow self acts like he uses people to gain thrills, to feel cool, and to fill a hole of boredom left in his life since moving away from the city. Yosuke hides this part of him because it is true that he gets a small amount of excitement sometimes when bad things happen, like these murders. However, the shadow also says that Yosuke never cared about Saki Konishi and the other people he uses to gain excitement, such as the player character. This isn't true, as it's simply what's easiest to believe since he feels so insecure about himself and the way Saki felt about him. Chie's shadow self tells her that she gains pleasure in the fact that Yukiko feels like she needs her, that she will always keep Yukiko under her, and that she's jealous of the natural talent of others while feeling disdain for her own plainness. This, once again, is only partially true. Chie does feel comforted by Yukiko's reliance on her, as it makes her feel better about herself, but she does not want to put Yukiko down, or feel like she is better than her. We already talked about Yukiko's shadow, but later in the game we also see Naoto's, and at this point the party is really starting to understand the theme, and this is to mirror the player's own understanding as it will later be tested. Naoto's shadow claims that she wants to be a man, but the party retort that what she really wants is to be accepted as she is, and that being a man is just an easy way out for her to do that within her own work environment, but not the true answer about how she's feeling. So eventually Kanji accepts his shadow, claiming that it isn't about men or women, boys or girls, and telling us that he simply wanted to be accepted. Now the final decision about this subject is indeed left ambiguous, so that the player can decide themselves. It's brilliantly set up halfway through the game like this to really get us thinking, and to look for parts in the story to examine with more scrutiny, rather than taking them as they first appear. The irony is this: the truth about Kanji's story has gone over the head of so many players, and spread by so many who haven't played the story to completion. And this is fine, honestly. It makes a wonderful picture of exactly what the game is trying to tell us. That as people, we take things at face value far too much instead of trying to understand a person. Kanji is never explicitly shown to be into guys at any point, but he does go on to have an attraction to Naoto, their relationship actually growing stronger after he learns that she is in fact a woman. I love that Kanji's story is one that isn't told enough these days. That being yourself is okay. That men don't have to be considered gay because they like a certain thing. And that the idea of masculinity that was accidentally believed by him isn't true. A real man is strong because he is a good person who cares, protects, and isn't afraid to be himself. And this is what Kanji comes to realize during his social link story. So I have alluded to the fact that the player needs to learn all this as they will be tested, and this ties in with the rest of the game. These story elements come to fruition in a very mechanical way later, as the player is given the choice to arrest the wrong culprit of the murders, but if they instead decide to press onwards, refuse to take the easy route, and carefully scrutinize the situation, they can continue the game and go on to find the real perpetrator. This is actually used again right at the end of the game with the true final boss. If the player refuses to go home because they feel like they haven't got the full truth yet, they are rewarded with the real ending. It's these story-driven mechanics that really cement Persona 4 as a very important RPG, and a unique one of its type. While Persona 3 nailed its tone and style, and Persona 5 is a much better overall package with tighter gameplay, Persona 4 has a special place as a game that challenges the player to think beyond the ordinary, to deny the obvious, and to reach out for the truth. in a way that only a video game can, by testing what you've learned from the characters and to apply it to your own character. And this is why Kanji Tatsumi is so important. His story and the location of his arc in the story is what challenges the player to do just that. Thank you again for watching another Star Games. I know this one was a bit different, more of an analysis than a review, but I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this or any of the other guides or anything else I do on my channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Just $1 a month can really help out with the cost for new games and equipment and help me to do this hopefully full time in the future. Anyway, thanks so much for watching and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.